All right, good morning, everyone. We're gonna give it a minute, another minute or two, and let some more people trickle in. All right, we can go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Max Lyon. I'm a Central Region City Planner with the City of Chicago and the Department of Planning and Development. I'm joined today with a few other city staff who are excited to bring to you an RFP. And we're going to try to get through this as quickly as possible today to leave a little bit of room for questions at the end. Everything that you see today is going to be from the RFP itself, which is available on our website. And as we go through, I'll definitely narrate those links again. And then any questions that come up during this, you're welcome to post in the Q&A function of Zoom. And then we'll leave a little bit of room at the end for questions as well to kind of run through those and answer any others. And then if any others come up that you would like to submit, you're welcome to do so. Again, there will be links at the end, but you're welcome to submit more questions, and those can be answered in the next few weeks via some posted FAQs to our website. So without further ado, again, I'd like to introduce some of our city staff. We'll start with Zoe Chan, who is joining us from Alderman Lee's office today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Zoe Chan, Chief of Staff to Alderman Lee, and would just like to apologize that Alderman Lee can't join us today, but she's excited to hear about what people have in store.
Great. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you for joining us. All right, I'll pitch it over to Brad Roback, who's our lead sustainability officer.
Hey, thanks, Max. Brad Roback, as Max mentioned, I work in the Department of Planning and Development in our citywide planning bureau, and a couple of places we intersect on this would be the sustainable development policy and river edge review for compliance with the Chicago River Design Guidelines. So maybe I will pass the microphone over to Cindy from DPD.
Hi, Cindy Chen Rubik, Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Planning and Development. Thank you so much for participating in this webinar. Excited to be launching this.
Good morning. My name is Heidi Sperry. I'm the lead planner for the Central Region here at DPD, and thanks again for joining us. I'll turn it over to David Pope.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Poe, Assistant Commissioner here at the Chicago Department of Transportation. I oversee plan development review as well as micromobility, and I will hand it over to Kevin McGinnis.
Hi, good morning. This is Kevin McGinnis, City Planner with Project Development at the Department of Transportation. And I'll send this to Lindsay.
Hi, Lindsay Fry. I'm at CDOT, a planner with Planning and Policy here. I think that is everyone.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right, so let's jump into it. So today we'll be discussing the RFP land sale being listed at 466 West Cermak. So we'll go into a little bit of the overview of just the RFP process, and then we'll get into the details of the site. So the city is listing this site through the RFP process, which means that we're looking for proposals that are going to creatively and actively reactivate this vacant site. We have a submission period up until June 30th, at which point we'll start reviewing and judging whatever applications we get at that point. After which we'll make a selection and a recommendation to our department's commissioner, and that recommendation will be made by our Commissioner Boatwright, and the applicants will be made aware, and we'll move forward from there. Selection criteria ranges from financial capacity, relevant experience, ability to complete similar scale developments, and just the overall concept. Your team responsibilities are going to include everywhere from site planning, architectural design, coordinating with CDOT. We'll get into it in a second, but you'll see a complex intersection that is adjacent to the site. So there will be some coordination with CDOT involved with that. Attracting anchor tenants, environmental remediation, and marketing properties to potential users. The city would expect vertical development to begin by 2026. Though schematic design isn't required at this time, we're just looking for overall concept and conceptual design. You would need to apply via the Shy Block Builder website, which I assume if you've found your way to this webinar, you've probably at least become a little familiar with. So apply through that website by midnight Monday, June 30th this year. All your documents get uploaded through there. It's a submittable portal, so if anyone has used submittable before, you'll find that familiar as well. And try to use the naming convention at the bottom of the screen here. Again, I will note that this presentation will be made available as well. So anything that's covered in here will also be, you'll be able to come back and reference it. So for the selection process, DPD's target price currently is 1.1, a little over 1.1 million. So this is not a minimum bid. However, this is kind of the target that the department and the city is going to be looking for from our applicants, and that will be taken into account as we go through the applications and review them. Applicants will also need to provide a good faith deposit equal to 20% or 10%, excuse me, of the appraised value, which in this case is 116,000. You'll also complete an offer to purchase form, which is located in the RFP appendix and is also on our website. City staff will then review the application, submit the recommendation, as I mentioned, to our DPD commissioner, and she will make the selected team. And after reviewing, DPD and the alderman's office will organize a public meeting, and applicants will have a chance to present themselves and their proposals to the community. On the right, you can see a quick outline of the scoring rubric, which is also in detail outlined in the RFP. So jumping into the site a little bit here, 466 West Cermak. This is a site in the Pilsen Plan Manufacturing District, number 11, subarea B. This is a site along the river, kind of bisected by Cermak and Canal, and a little bit of Grove Street, which we'll get into in a little bit. As I said, this is a PMD, so our preferred uses by right here are going to be retail, restaurant, grocery, office, artist workspace. Unfortunately, residential is not permitted in PMDs, so residential would not be permitted on this site. The design vision we'd like to aim for going forward on this site is just redeveloping. This is a vacant parcel, so we'd like to see this ideally redeveloped to complement the nearby development and the use types and the architectural styles of the nearby area. You'll see from this map, there's a Cermak Road Bridge Historic District that this site is kind of tucked into and adjacent to. So you'll see some design styles that are featured there that we'd like to see incorporated as well. So some of those things that are also nearby primarily is Chinatown and Pingtom Park. There's a lot of big features nearby the site beyond just the south branch of the river, although that is a big natural feature. We've got Chinatown, a very active part of Chinatown, Pingtom Park, the Cermak Chinatown CTA station, the water taxi, which also ends in Pingtom Park. Of course, the Pilsen neighborhood, and as I mentioned, the Cermak Road Bridge Historic District. Here's a few images of the site as it stands today. So the largest image on the top left is a full panoramic of the site. We have Cermak on the left and the little leg of Grove Street on the right. It's currently just a vacant gravel parking lot that backs up to the river with a small tree line. You see that on the bottom, both the north and south edge. So it's a little bit of a rough edge and a little bit of an embankment. And then the two photos on the right show, the top one shows looking back from Grove Street towards the Cermak Road Bridge. And you get a taste of those Cermak Road Bridge Historic District buildings in the background. And then the bottom right is showing. It's an awkward picture because it shows an awkward intersection. We have a very kind of a tilt here, a weird change of grade. But in the distance here, we also see, I'll try to use my mouse if you can see it. This little island is actually the little triangular piece of the Grove Street intersection that we would need reconstructed as well, which we'll get to. And that brings me to that exactly. So with this site come several urban design principles that we'd like to see um, played out in this site and addressed. The first and probably most complex of them being the Grove Street complex intersection. So right here we have a strange little leg of Grove Street that comes up and intersects, crosses Cermak and intersects at an angle with Canal. So we would want to see this leg of Grove Street incorporated and the remaining land of that little island also incorporated into this site. So that would involve closing Grove Street to traffic between Cermak and Canal, removing the crosswalk, widening sidewalks to improve the pinch points, and installing buffered bike lanes. The remaining portion we encouraged you to reuse as public open space or as vertical development. However, we do want to note that if vertical development or any sort of intensive public open space is the choice, then it is worth noting that the land currently occupied by Grove Street, so especially that angled corridor, does contain underground utilities. So any proposed designs will need to accommodate those, either by relocating them, or just building around them and accommodating for them. This site is also along the Chicago River. So this site is also governed by the Chicago River Design Guidelines. So any new development here, any vertical development is going to need to abide by at least a 30-foot setback from the river's edge, as well as favoring that setback and that water's edge for public open space, and providing any sort of riverfront access or open spaces wherever possible. We'd also like you to incorporate at least one priority item from the menu of improvement items of the Chicago River Design Guidelines. Another guideline we touched on already was complementing the design and the contextual styles around directly adjacent to the site. So first up, just the general massing of the area. We'd like to see massing density or maximizing density, but still remaining sensitive to the surrounding density. So if this particular frontage is up against the building on the very bottom photo, for instance, a massing that would be contextual to that would be something that at least tries to emulate the height and the scale, maybe not across your entire site, but maybe directly abutting it across the road face. And that applies across the rest of the site too. If you propose anything tall, you'd want to step that down as it starts to meet and get closer to adjacent smaller scales. And then generally hold corners and reinforce the surrounding grid. I realize we've got a little bit of a complex intersection here to deal with, so holding the corner may be strange, but that's just a general rule of thumb. And then for materials, we just want to see an avoidance of creating long blank walls. Make sure you put a lot of punched openings in there or glazing. High quality materials, especially on frontages, very visible from the public right away, which unfortunately for this site, or fortunately, is I think all borders, because the river does count as a public right away. And then complement the existing context and architecture, as we've already mentioned, the Chicago Road Bridge Historic District. We also want to address access and public realm and open space on this site. So access to the site should just be putting pedestrian safety and non-auto traffic first. Parking and loading should be as minimal as possible and should be as located and oriented towards the back of the site, wherever that back may be, as you start to massage the floor plan. Any uncovered parking should be designed considering the required screening and landscaping requirements, on-site stormwater management, pedestrian connections to the building, the usual public realm kind of considerations. Curb cuts and vehicular access points should be located along the canal street frontage only. So we'd like to avoid any sort of vehicular connections along Cermak. This is mostly to improve experience along Cermak and to avoid any sort of like queuing or pile up with the bridge that's right there. And then for public realm and open space, we'd like to see this site and this proposal engage the public realm and improve pedestrian experience as much as possible. That includes vegetation, access to sunlight, the general walking experience, lighting, especially lighting to promote, you know, a feeling of safety and security, on-site water management, equitable access. We also want to connect open spaces with public points of entry. So as you start to massage your site plan, we just, you know, hope that you prioritize connecting whatever you're proposing there to the features directly around the site and then to the community features as well as much as you can. And then incorporate green elements and trees, paving materials to distinguish between private and public spaces, pedestrian amenities, seating, everything that abides by the complete street standards, neighborhood design guidelines as applicable, the Chicago River design guidelines, and of course the Chicago River brand standards and design guidelines. And that last one is applicable only for any river walk signage that you may incorporate. And lastly, just a quick overview image. So this kind of summarizes what we just talked about. This is oriented a little bit backwards from the maps we were just looking at. So north is actually down towards the bottom. But this gives you a general idea of just something completely random that could be there in terms of general massing. So we see the big red massing is able to achieve a height that's similar to the massing just to the south, which in this image is covered up by the giant blue box. So we have a volume that's reminiscent of that, but then we have other volumes of this massing that step down and try to deteriorate the massing as it gets to the river and to neighboring development. We also have in brown that Grove Street vacation. So that's that whole plot of area next to the site that's for sale, but that should be incorporated with the site. And that will need to get vacated, and that can be built on, and that can or can be open space. Again, building and orientation and massing and materials we covered, and then of course parking and loading and service should be in the back and away from the public view. So I know I sped through that pretty quick, but just a couple reminders. So for the application process, you'd want to apply by Monday, June 30th. So you've got a little bit of time to get your concepts together and ask a bunch of questions. All of that is available through the ShyBlock Builder website. That includes our application, the RFP itself, and if you'd like to submit any sort of additional questions outside of this webinar, you may do so through the website, and we will get back to you with posted regular intervals of FAQ questions. And as I mentioned, FAQs will be published up until June 3rd or June 1st in regular intervals. So with that, I'd like to open it up to questions. Since I did speed through it, I hope we have some questions. Yeah. All right, it's awfully quiet. Oh, here we go. We're getting some. I was gonna say we've got a good turnout today. I'm excited to see what a good amount of participants we have.
Max, I'll go ahead and read the questions. First of all, is there an EPA phase 1 study on the site?
Good question. There has not been, I don't believe, but any sort of environmental remediation that may need to be done, we can run those tests after the RFP, and then financing is available for any sort of environmental remediation that would be done through a separate application process.
I'll just turn it over to Cindy. She wanted to add to that.
Oh, no, I was just responding that this is being answered live.
Oh, okay, terrific.
Yeah, but we
and
would
I would,
work closely with our colleagues at 2FM on any environmental review processes that will be needed for this. And I believe there's language in the RFP document that talks about the environmental screening processes that are needed for this.
terrific. We'll go on to the next question. There's a bike lane in front of Pacifica that will be coming online shortly, south of this lot on Grove. If this leg of Grove is closed, a connection to existing bike lanes on Canal will probably have to access across this property. Is there a requirement or plan set for that? Perhaps this is a question maybe our CDOT folks who are joining us could give some direction or feedback on.
Sure, this is Kevin McGinnis with CDOT. So there's going to be the canal bike lanes. There's opportunity possibly for connection along Cermak. Since there's only gonna be a stop sign at Grove Street, not sure how we would get bikes to safely cross at that intersection. I think that's something that we'd be interested in having further plans on and discussing with applicants directly, but definitely open to seeing like unique proposals for that open space also.
Thanks, Kevin. The next question relates to a future process. Will there be a town hall community meeting held to give input for these proposed projects? I can take that one. We will be reviewing the projects that have been submitted. DPD will make a recommendation. And then in consultation with department leadership and the alderman's office, the selection will be made of the applicant. And then we'll come back to the community for the applicant to introduce themselves to the community as well as preview their project. The next question relates to, is there soil boring conducted? That is a question that we would be coordinating with our AIS team as we're moving forward. At present, no soil boring has been conducted. And then finally, we have a question. What role, if any, does the Chinatown Chamber of Commerce have in determining the correct mix of uses for the site? So I can take that one. Again, we will be working with the alderman's office to prioritize and hear from her constituents on, communities' preferred uses and understanding the mix of uses. But again, I want to reiterate that the permitted uses for the site are largely dictated by the PMD.
And any redevelopment, because this is within 30 feet of the waterway, would need to go through the plan development process as well. And so we would gather public input as part of that process. And just to go back to the soil boring question, typically what happens is after a team is selected from the RFP process, then we work with, again, our colleagues at Fleet and Facilities Management, 2FM, to provide the applicant with a right of entry, and that then the applicant can do their due diligence with any borings needed, any information on environmental screening that needs to be done well before the going to close on the property. So the applicant has a chance to do their due diligence at that point, only after the RFP selection process is completed, but before the land is transacted on.
Perfect. Happy to answer any additional questions.
Like that's all we're getting.
Looks like there is one question remaining. If the site is found to be contaminated, will financing be provided by the city to help clean up the site? And
So
I'm sorry, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead, Heidi.
Sure. I think that this is basically what Cindy was alluding to when she said working with the fleet and facilities management team of the city. When we get to that stage of this process, we will have a coordinated effort with the selected applicant, and we will be able to discuss, the extent of any environmental cleanup that may be required, as well as potential financing options.
And I think that would be part of your proposal, right? And if your proposal, for example, I'm just going to throw out an example, has an offer to for the purchase of the land, but that maybe has contingency on the environmental costs to remediate that land, for example, that would be part of your proposed offer. So, we don't want to dictate to folks how they should be applying for this, but that is, potentially one way. I do want to point out, we did have a comment from the McKinley Park Development Council and Coalition for a Better Chinese American Community. They're both on this webinar today. And their comment we put in the Q&A box, but it really was to let folks know that they're interested in engaging early. So if any applicant is interested, they've provided a email address, info@mpdcchicago.org. And then they also have riverfront planning documents on their website at mpdcchicago.org. And so we'll just pass that information along. We are also going to be posting an FAQ regularly until June 1st, and you're able to send more questions until May 15th. So I think we've answered all the questions. Thank you.
I think so.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone. This was great. I hope it was helpful. And yeah, looking forward to seeing everyone's submissions. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day.